Hello everyone, and welcome. We are going to go in depth on the origins and history of the Zonai, Shiekah, Twilight, and the ancient Hylians, as well as every detail we can find to connect these ancient mysterious races together. I know this is a very divisive topic. A lot of fans want Tears of the Kingdom and the Zonai to have absolutely nothing to do with Midna, the Twilight race, or the Twilight realm, while the other half of fans strongly believe the Twilight and Zonai are 100% confirmed to be directly connected. Whichever side you are on, you cannot deny the two races have a lot of similarities, share many symbols, and much more. If you're a fan of videos like this, please subscribe, give this video a like, and comment your thoughts on all of this. Let us know which side you're on. If you are familiar with the lore of Twilight Princess, you know the Twilight are sort of a mix of the Shiekah, Gerudo, and possibly other unknown races. However, we can see the Gerudo and the Shiekah are the two most prominent that share a culture and symbolism with the Twilight, which is important going forward. You can watch this video here for a full in-depth breakdown on this specific topic or theory. We all know the Zonai, the Twilight, and the Shiekah, might as well include the Yiga, are all said to have been ancient, dark, mysterious tribes with magical abilities. And it wasn't until Breath of the Wild that more on the Shiekah was actually revealed. We will start with the origins of the tribe first introduced. You may think the Shiekah, but I believe it would be the ancient Hylians, who are quite different from the Hylians of today. Some living among the goddess Hylia herself, long before the land would be called Hyrule, and technically wouldn't even be called Hylians. They were all referred to as just humans, as the civilization only began to call themselves Hylians after the events of Skyward Sword, and the kingdom was named Hyrule. It is said a lot of these ancient Hylians had powerful magic. Sadly, most of them were killed during the original war with Demise. Hylia raises some of the survivors into the sky to keep them safe. She creates the cloud barrier to seal the two worlds away from each other, and remains on the land below with her remaining army to stop Demise. Afraid of the seal weakening, Hylia had to become human and give up her divine form to use the Triforce, in case it was needed in the future, or Demise returns. As time went on, these ancient Hylians began to lose their magic, just as those living on Skyloft had completely forgotten there was a ground below the clouds. However, every now and then, normal Hylians would be able to access some of this power. Some of them would become sages and be called upon to use their power to help protect the Triforce. Now, the origins of the Shiekah. 𝗵𝗲 from Skyward Sword is the first Shiekah we meet in the timeline. Since we know from interviews and official material, 𝗵𝗲 was one of these ancient Hylians chosen by the goddess Hylia herself to be one of her protectors. And before Hylia gives up her divine form, Hylia asks her group of protectors, who come to be known as the Shiekah, to watch over the sword and to never allow Demise to be reawakened. She then specifically commands 𝗵𝗲 to go through the Gate of Time to protect her future reincarnation, who would be called Zelda. Next, we can move on to the Twilight tribe. After an era of peace in Hyrule between the time of Skyward Sword and Minish Cap, people would begin hearing rumors of the magical Triforce. This led to many of them going to war over control of Hyrule, the Sacred Realm, and the Triforce. One of these groups were formed of powerful magic users. The goddesses would send the light spirits to banish them to a realm called the Sacred Realm. Eventually, the goddesses would send the light spirits to banish them to another realm, which would continue to be used as a prison for them and many others, including Ganondorf. This prison realm would come to be known as the Twilight Realm. After they were sealed, Rauru, yes, the same Rauru from Ocarina of Time, would build a new Temple of Time to seal and hide the entrance to the Sacred Realm, so that no one else would be able to steal the Triforce. The Twilight origins are kind of similar to the origins of the Yiga. Princess Midna herself states, "What do you think happened to the magic wielders who tried to rule the Sacred Realm? They were banished. They were chased across the sacred lands of Hyrule and driven into another realm by the goddesses. Those sent to the Twilight Realm would come to be known as the Twilight, and their appearances would change, whether they be Shiekah, Gerudo, Hylian, or something else, would come to be known as the Twilight, and their appearances would change to the way they look now. Since we know the powerful magic users were mostly chosen to be Shiekah, or born as a Shiekah, the Twilight most likely began as this group of the Shiekah, who tried taking control of the Triforce, as Midna said, as well as a mix of the other races who were imprisoned there. Now, the Zonai are also said to be an ancient race of powerful magic users, who disappeared a long time ago, and we now know live in the sky. Let's go over some facts that I think lead to this powerful race to also be tied to both the Twilight and the Shiekah. One quick thing is this mask we see certain Zonai wearing or carrying around reminds me of how masks are also important for the Twilight. Moving beyond the origin stories and into the similar features, characteristics of each race or tribe, and the deep connections. In Breath of the Wild, we are told the Zonai are an ancient, magical, and mysterious race that disappeared long ago, and no one seems to know what happened to them. We only have relics or monuments showing their tribe lived in Hyrule long ago. But in the Sky Islands, above Hyrule, not only do we find similar Zonai relics and monuments more frequently, as we see in these scenes, but we find more variations of them, as well as active robot-like enemies or protectors. With more Zonai-related stuff found in the sky, it seems the Zonai disappeared from the land below to the Sky Islands, or a place that is accessed through the Sky Islands. Though the Sky Islands could link to multiple possibilities. When we visit the actual Twilight Realm in Twilight Princess, it is outside of the Palace of Twilight, which also just happens to be located on floating Sky Islands. Most people only think of the city in the sky when they think of Sky Islands in Twilight Princess, not the Twilight Realm. We have a few more things that make this even more interesting though. In A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds, when we see the Sacred Realm, which some do believe are what the Sky Islands in Tears of the Kingdom are, or at least where they came from, both games, whether in artwork or in-game, depict the Sacred Realm as islands floating in the sky. In A Link to the Past's case, we also see it with the same color as the Twilight Realm when looking at the clouds and skies from A Link to the Past's Sky Islands. Back to Twilight Princess, even with City in the Sky, the main boss is the Twilight Dragon, Argorok, which fits with the Zonai Dragon theme. And we can even see golden light or golden trees coming from this concept art of the actual Twilight Realm beyond the Palace of Twilight. Of course, we all know we can see the same bluish green color or neon glow everywhere, which relates to both the Twilight and Zonai. The most prominent symbol of not only the Shiekah, but the Twilight as well, the focus and symbolism of the eye, as we can see here on the design of Midna's outfit, her mask, and even on the throne of the Twilight Realm. As for the Zonai, we see this same symbolism of the eye in this official Zonai logo. In Tears of the Kingdom, Link carries this new item created by the Zonai. Even with it, we have the same similar color, design, and most importantly, the focus on the eye. We are also introduced to these new Zonai robots, who share these same designs, and the eye symbol, which remind me of a mix between advanced Shiekah technology as well as the other ancient robots we see in Skyward Sword. Next, we are introduced to this prominent Zonai character who shares a lot of the same features as the Shiekah. The Shiekah eye, similar skin tone, the same prominent white hair. Even their art and designs, we find all heavy focus on this eye with the same aesthetic and details we see the Twilight and Shiekah. We see the Twilight and Shiekah both have with what looks like eyelashes or arrows around the eye. The Zonai and Twilight both have a lot of focus on jewelry, with the hand we see wearing this long golden armlet, which we later see Link with, while Midna or other Twilight aren't wearing the armlet, which is what I'm calling it. We can see part of their body, especially their arms, glowing the same glow as the Zonai hand, but instead of the full arm surrounded by an armlet, the glow on the Twilight actually makes up the design similar to that we see of the Zonai armlet. Earlier, we mentioned the eye on the Twilight throne. If we look at the sides of it, we can see the famous and well-known Zonai symbol of the square swirls. If this symbol wasn't important to both races, why would the Zonai have it all over everything they build? And the Twilight has several of them on the literal throne for their leader. and once again, identical to this important Zonai character we see carved on the wall with the design coming off of its side, and we'll come back to him later. The powerful mask we see Midna wearing in this image is made up of the fused shadow pieces which we help her take back during the events of Twilight Princess. The mask was created when the light spirits sealed away the interlopers, which some believe to have been evil Shiekah or ancient Twilight. On the mask, we can see the same Zonai symbol at the very top of what I will refer to as the four horns. We also see the same Zonai symbol carved all over the mask itself. We see yet another important Zonai reference on the mask as well, the two serpent-like creatures wrapped around the top face of the mask, with the heads of the serpents coming together at this circle between them, with another circle surrounding it. We also know the Zonai worship these serpent-like dragons, as we see it literally all over their designs, monuments, and almost every structure they built, possibly one of their most common symbolisms. Even the new logo for Tears of the Kingdom is a version of this. We also see it in the sky area with this symbol on the large door, again with both serpents or dragons wrapped around this circle. Yet again, we see the same thing on Link's shield. If we go back to the throne room, we can see 4 different dragons, one as the handrail on both sides of the steps, going from its tail at the bottom all the way up and ending almost at the same height of the throne itself. Once again, both serpents or dragons facing each other, going around this circular design. We have more serpents or dragons in each corner of the room, with the tails on the ground and going all the way to the ceiling and ending with the heads touching these circular things. As if it isn't enough, we see this Zonai swirl on both sides of these corner serpents. This one may be small, but if we look at the design on the wall behind Zant, doesn't it look similar to the outlines we see from Tears of the Kingdom all over Hyrule? And if we take another look at the throne itself, it overall has a similar shape to this Zonai character in the artwork. We have already mentioned these Zonai swirls. We have these glowing orbs powering almost all of the Palace of Twilight. When we first see them, they are being held by the hands controlled by Zant, which are again covered in the Zonai swirl. When these souls are used, we see the blue-green glow light up the outlines all over the room, giving it power to move the platforms and more. If we take a look at Zant's armor, we can see another theme of serpents or dragons being prominently displayed, the same with Ganondorf. We have many reasons to believe these Zonai and Twilight are somehow related, but we also have a few things that possibly connect these Zonai to other tribes, such as the robotic constructs looking very similar to the ancient robots we find in Skyward Sword, which takes place long before Twilight Princess, and long before a time we know of the Shiekah and Gerudo being sent to the Twilight Realm. However, not only are both sentient advanced robots, but both versions use this same energy or electricity to keep themselves connected. Although if this ancient race was a past version of the Shiekah and not a different race or tribe, they could possibly still connect to the Zonai. Another connection that is a bit controversial is the Twilight mirror. No, this mirror in Breath of the Wild doesn't completely match the mirror from Twilight Princess, but it does look similar. There are different opinions on this. Some think it is simply the same thing we see with all of the other visual changes we see between different Zelda games and art styles. If the mirror isn't connected to the Zonai, Twilight, or Tears of the Kingdom, it seems so odd to have it in Breath of the Wild in the way that it is. It is the focus of the quest, a fragmented monument, to unlock the Ka-Ya Shrine, and it even has its own characters specifically for the mirror. A young child named Zuta tells us he found some old ruins alongside Gherini, located close to 𝗵𝗲 ruins, which is one of the many Zonai ruins. We find each 3 pieces of the mirror in areas surrounding these Zonai ruins. It is then placed on a pedestal, and when deciphered, it reads out for people to bow to it, which finally unlocks the shrine. Nintendo does all of this just to leave it an open mystery, and yes, other shrines or quests had their own characters dedicated to them as well, but none left quite as mysterious as this one. The original Twilight Mirror was located in Arbiter's Grounds and was used to access the Twilight Realm. And yes, the Arbiter's Grounds are also in Breath of the Wild, though buried under the sand, and we just happened to see this giant temple rising out from being buried under the sand in one of the trailers. Some think because the mirror was shattered, it can't come back. However, I say if characters were able to create it once, why couldn't they create it again? Nintendo themselves may have had this intention, may have wanted to do this a long time ago. We know Nintendo began a direct sequel to Twilight Princess directly after, but it was later cancelled and turned into Skyward Sword, as well as the spin-off Link's Crossbow Training. I would imagine it would have us return to the Twilight Realm, since we know that they, at the very least, still wanted to explore much more of the world and characters that live there, thanks to the artwork we have. If all of this does connect, and the mirror is a version of the Mirror of Twilight, why is it found located with the rest of the Zonai ruins? With the new race or tribe of Zonai having a lot of individual connections to the Shiekah and separate connections to the Twilight, as well as other connections they all share, I feel this is evidence of all three races or groups being slightly different branches of the original race of ancient Hylians that came from the time of the goddess Hylia, known as the ancient Hylians, as well as their descendants, just as the Yiga branched off from the Shiekah, as well as the Twilight branching off from the Shiekah. The Zonai are another one of these branches, with connections to all of them. Thank you all so much for watching the video, and please, if you made it this far, consider subscribing and commenting below. It really does help us out. Hello everyone, I just want to say thank you for watching the video all the way through. Some of you have been asking, and yes, we still have shirts and other merch available at teespring.com. You can find a link in the description below. If you purchase one and send us a picture wearing it, we will give you a shout out and include your picture during one of our upcoming videos. Thank you to our amazing Patreon supporters, starting off with our royal family, Shadow to Us. On our champion tier, Justin Clark, Monica Spath, SOBERX. In the Shiekah tier, Andremoy, Joseph, Natsu, Wrecker1, Rusty Caulfield, Tremel. And in the Kokiri tier, Gene Pinna, Chad Costin, David Guthman, Candy, Disappointment, Gus Calvo, Zane, Lean, Lovable Christie, Mr. Monocled Metroid, and whoever this is only donated to hear Jesse speak my name. Thank you all so much. If any of you would like your name to be featured at the end of any of our videos, or to get a shout out at the beginning of our Zelda podcast, the Hylian Gamescast, and to have any of your topics or questions answered or turned into a full video to be featured here on our channel, along with many other things, please join our Patreon and help support the channel. Thank you all so much. Happy Halloween.